Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Living Legacy series from Of the I Sing American Heritage Through Song. I am Audrey Johnson, classically trained opera singer and founder of the I Sing. I'd love to hear where everyone is watching from, so please chime in through the comments section. The mission of the I Sing is to bring American heritage to life through music, and a cornerstone of this mission is to support and champion contemporary American composers because they are the living legacy of our nation's musical heritage and culture. I especially love featuring their musical settings of American poetry because this brings our national treasury of literature to the forefront as well. I believe deeply in our nation's music and poetry, and I am honored to be an ambassador of this music with the vision of bringing people together through the power of song. This series gives us all the chance to get to know these wonderful and important American artists, and I feature a different composer and one of their songs in each month's episode. On today's episode, I am so excited to have composer and poet Jessica Buford as the featured guest. After a mutual friend and colleague put us in touch last year, Jessica was kind enough to share her compositions with me, and her song, They Were Minors, which you will hear today, was among them. From the first moment of hearing the opening melody, I knew immediately that I wanted to sing her music, commission her to write new works, and feature her on the series. I am thrilled to introduce you now to this amazing and multi-talented artist, Jessica Buford.
Hello, Audrey.
Jessica, welcome. Hello. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So we're all very eager to hear about your musical journey and compositional process. But before we begin, I'd love to share more about your accomplishments and career because it's an honor for me to be working with such an accomplished artist. So I'd love to share Jessica received her degree in composition from the University of North Carolina School for the Arts, where she studied with renowned composer and teacher Kenneth Frizzell. She is a grant recipient through the Siemens Art Fund, which has allowed her to attend the Siena Summer Music Festival, as well as the Pacific Northwest Film Composition Summer Intensive, where she worked with two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Hami Mann. In addition to her current master's studies in musicology at the University of Illinois, she's a sought-after composer, and I have personally commissioned her to write two new songs for the inaugural Of the I Sing concert on the women's suffrage movement. So, Jessica, these are wonderful accolades, and I'd love if you could share where your love of music began and what drew you to composing.
Um, yeah, I've loved music for as long as I can remember. I started reading it when I was about 8, I believe, somewhere in that, somewhere in there. And I started playing clarinet around 10. Um, and I grew up a band nerd, I guess you could say,
Yes, love it.
out of marching band, that sort of thing throughout high school and throughout college. Um, and I just grew up in a musical family. I mean, uh, my father plays saxophone. We have church choir directors, organists, pianists, just all sorts of musical folks. Kind of reminds me of an old Betty Boop cartoon, musical mountaineers or something of that sort. But yeah, just all sorts of people. Um, and I used to sit on my father's lap and press the keys on his saxophone when I was a little girl. And by 12, I was playing along with him in church. And it's just always been a part of who I am.
I think that is so beautiful. And it's so important, I think, this day and age, especially with the arts, in such jeopardy within our public school systems, and really just not receiving that high caliber of appreciation that they should have. I just love that you're sharing this with us. What a beautiful memory of you on your father's lap playing the keys on the saxophone. I love it. And that's so beautifully just developed for you into just this natural progression of your own musicality, your own musicianship. What a wide range of timbres. So timbres, we would say, are it's the tonal color. It's how, when you're listening to the radio, let's say, and you can't see an instrument, how you know it's a piano, or you know it's a saxophone, or you know it's a tuba. So that would be the timbre. And so you grew up, Jessica, with such a wide range of timbres of these musical instruments. It makes a lot of sense to me that you then went on to composition, because you had all of those sounds so early on. And that church family, that marching band family, I definitely can relate to both of those. And I just love the way that when we have these areas in our lives where the music is of such a high caliber, and also it's within such a welcoming and encouraging environment, this team effort, this congregational effort together, it just, I feel, has a way of opening our creativity. It gives us permission somehow to really delve in and really feel like the music is ours and belongs to us. So I just love that that was your experience, and I hope it's an example for all of us of just how much of an impact those things make, especially early on in a child's life, in a young person's life. So wonderful. Jessica, we would love it if you could share a little bit about your compositional process, as well as your inspiration for writing a specific piece of music.
Yeah. So not everyone has, of course, their own way of coming about a piece. Oftentimes, like I'll get an idea or a fragment in my head, and I'll start to sing it, and I'll use a voice recorder on my phone to, just kind of record the idea. Um, I use the piano as well. I have my keyboard lying at my bedside, just in case, I happen to get an idea in my sleep, or something comes up while I'm dreaming, something like that. And I'll improvise also using the voice recorder. And I'll also use sketchbooks a lot of the time. And it's fine if, not everybody, I guess, imagines entire symphonies in their head. Everyone has their own way. And I tend to use sketchbooks just to write down different ideas, directions, fragments, things like that. Um, and oftentimes, especially if it's a vocal work, it won't actually make it to finale until a lot of it is already in place. And that's the software I tend to gravitate towards is Finale.
Mhm. Thank you. I think that is, I love the way that you're expressing, everybody has a different compositional process. And for you, it sounds like, not only are you versed in instruments, but you also are versed vocally, which definitely we will see in Jessica's song, how well that fits in with her ability to write so beautifully for the voice. And I just absolutely love the idea. I think many of us keep journals by our bedsides. Of course, writers and poets do so. And Jessica, being a composer, in addition to a notebook, will also keep a keyboard by her bedside. I just think that is such a lovely and wonderful image for a musical creative such as Jessica. That's just amazing. So no, I love that, and the fact too that you seem possibly to have this kind of tactile relationship with the music that you're writing, saying that you don't really take it to a computer program until it's very far along. So is that something for you, that you tend to really like that tactile connection with actually physically writing things out?
Definitely. I mean, having like notes apps and technology to help us out. I mean, it's fantastic. You never know when something's going to strike you, or you're going to run into inspiration of some kind. And events may happen that spur those things on. But there's something, as you said, about the act of being able to like physically take a pen or paper to a hand and just
Mhm.
write things out, scratch things out, highlight them. Like there's something more immediate in a way. I feel about being able to do it that way.
Yes, I think that makes perfect sense. I'm sure a lot of us have maybe realized that. I don't know if any of you have. I feel like I retain better information when I read a physical book than when I read a Kindle, for example. There's just something about that tactile connection there. So I that makes perfect sense to me, and I love that you've realized that for yourself and incorporated that into your process. I think that's excellent. So wonderful, and maybe also to that point of having a place to write things down. To refer to something that sets you apart from other composers is that you very often you also write the text to the songs that you're writing. Would you mind letting us into your creative space on this a little bit and maybe share how this creation process works for you when you're writing both the words and the music to a song? I'd personally like to know if one element tends to come before the other more often than not, say the words before the music or vice versa.
I think it can depend sometimes. If if you're actually setting pre-existing text, then obviously everything's in front of you. Um, but if you're writing your own, there's a bit of flexibility that's allowed there. When the music comes about first, when I have those sorts of fragments in front of me or they're coming into my head, um, I can kind of shape the words and use less here or more here to kind of interact with the music in a certain way. Um, but then at the same time, if um, words come to my head first, it's the opposite, and you can, change a note here or change directions here, vary this in a certain way to emphasize the text or de-emphasize something that you don't need to take or you don't need to draw attention to. So it really really depends, but I do have them kind of interact and I guess come together as a whole instead of it being like one and then the other. They kind of develop together.
Sure. No, that makes so much sense. And thank you for sharing that with us. I find that fascinating. So, wonderful. And so, speaking of just such one of these pieces that you have written both the words and the music for, today I will be singing your song "They Were Minors," which is a great example of this. And I know that additionally, this song has a very special significance for you personally. I would be honored if you would share more about this with us.
I'd be honored, and I'm already honored that that you're actually singing it. Um, they were minors. It came about over uh, quite a bit of time, I guess you would say. While I was at the Pacific Northwest Film Scoring Intensive, we had a songwriting class, and our facilitator gave us 5 minutes to do a free write.
Mhm.
And my grandfather's stories are such a huge part of my family's history. He's a coal miner. He worked in the coal mines for 44 years. Um, and just all of the things that he told us about all of the advantages, all of the disadvantages, how you're to be proud of doing something so difficult and working with other people in kind of an amicable way. All of those things were kind of buzzing around in my head for whatever reason that day. And in that 5 minutes, that's when some of the first lines that you'll hear actually came along. Um,
Wow.
I'm quite proud of him and the way that he actually portrayed coal mining, what he thought about it, how he expressed that to us, because he wasn't oftentimes when it comes to coal, we see there being kind of either you're a proponent or you're an enemy of coal. Sometimes you see a lot of that. But my grandfather was very balanced in the way that he spoke about it. And he he would have
Mhm.
known.
Yeah.
Um, he was open about, the fact that um, he and those he worked with were determined, and that it was a special thing to do, but at the same time that it hurt the earth,
Mm,
and that it could tear you down, and it could be bad for your health,
mhm.
and all of those things. He was very even-handed and unbiased in the way that he talked to us about it.
Wow. That really is something. You're right. That's a really unique um, perspective for him to be able to remain so even-handed when he spoke to you, because, of course, with you guys, that's behind closed doors. He could have really expressed any number of things, within a wide range. And the fact that he really did have that honestly, as a very balanced perspective, that really is quite remarkable. And you've set this so beautifully. Before I actually go and sing this song, Jessica, we would love it if you would read your words to us of this poem.
It's the coal dust and its woes stream black rain on the lungs of foes. A canary's frozen pose visits pain on the hearts of those who want free. They want free. There can't be another way. They were miners yesterday, now, and forever. In the mining town, the valley's scarred, and the brown ground lies bare, distressed despair, carved and clawed with metallic paws. 3 long months laid off, bread stretched supper, a scary cough that won't let him sleep. But the foreman called today. They won't let him get away. He doesn't talk for long. He can tell he's not as strong. Comfort is an expensive dream reserved for his family.
That is so poignant. Thank you for reading that to us. That is really very a very special experience. And now it is my honor to sing this beautiful song that Jessica Buford has composed and written the words for. They were miners. The coal dust and its woes stream black rain on the lungs of foes. A canary's frozen pose clawed and carved and clawed with metallic paws. Three long months laid off, red stretched supper, a scary cough that won't let him sleep. But the foreman called today, they won't let him get away. He doesn't talk for long. He can tell he's not as strong. Comfort is an expensive dream reserved for his family. Jessica, thank you so much for allowing me to share your beautiful composition with everyone here today. And as I mentioned initially in this interview, this piece drew me in immediately. Jessica premiered this during her compositional studies, and so had a wonderful recording of it to share with me. And upon the first listen, this piece drew me in immediately, even before the vocal line started. And, I really feel that you have such a way, as you were saying, making the music and the words really enhance one another. And for an example, again, before that vocal line even comes in, we can hear what I felt was that dripping of the water in the mine, and not only do we hear that physically just happening, but we also get a sense of what that means emotionally, what kind of emotional response these miners have with that, what that indicates. I remember, Jessica, when you and I were talking about this piece, when you and I were first starting to correspond, and you told me that your grandfather would relate these images to you. One was of him going into the mine, he's got his lunch pail, and that the water would drip on his sandwich, and this is that dirty coal water from the tops of these caves. And you can hear that instantly, and it just sets this mood that it just so beautifully conveys the words and just brings us into that world immediately. So I just cannot say enough about my respect for you and your talent as a composer. It's just wonderful.
I can't thank you enough for actually performing it and performing it so beautifully.
Thank
Um, and you hit the proverbial nail on the head.
you.
I kind of wanted to convey, even with the determination, this immediate sense of dread and literal and figurative darkness, and hopefully that's come across without being too doom and gloom.
No, absolutely. And again, to your point of how balanced your grandfather was when he spoke about coal mining, I feel that your piece reflects that balance as well. This is not a soapbox moment for, coal is absolutely evil, or it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, it really gave to me this honest, fully formed and balanced depiction of all of the elements that went into the mining industry and the miners that were so intrinsically connected with it. So it really has touched me, and I'm sure that the music has done that for others. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share this today. And I'm hoping that there might be some younger participants watching this, some younger audience members, maybe some budding musicians, budding composers, perhaps. And before we close, I would love it if maybe you would take a moment to speak to those people and convey to them some advice maybe that you would think would be the most important for them to keep in mind during the course of their development?
So this is an interesting question because I feel like I'm still uh, so I guess kind of new and not all that far into kind of my compositional journey. Um, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that come to mind. Um, Obviously, make friends with performers, have good relationships with them so that they will perform your music and do it beautifully like you have.
Oh, that's so kind.
I would I was thinking about this question, and I don't know, the phrase "let jerks shape you, not shake you" came came to mind. Um, and I don't know. I guess I have a quick example of it, which is that at some point there was a premiere of a few different pieces, and a lot of us were together and um, riding in one vehicle, and we had a young composer say, like, kind of gushing about someone's work they'd heard, and kind of went on and on about how incredible it was. And there were two people that had premiered that day, and or within that one vehicle, and I was the other. And he said, "Yeah, oh, and Jessica's piece was okay."
Gosh, that's horrible.
and, and like you could hear like just there's like this heavy silence. And I
Yeah.
can laugh about it now. I mean, at the time, like it was like, oh my goodness, but now I can laugh about it. But I say that to say that it was a reminder of what not to do and how not to talk to people. I mean, of course, I've been raised. When you're raised up, you don't talk down to people.
Mhm.
Um, but it's good to have those sorts of reminders. So that's one. Let jerks shape you, not shake you.
I love that. Oh, that is perfect.
Always have sketchbooks or always have little notebooks. Beethoven did it.
Mhm.
You don't have to do everything he did, but that's a good one. Um, yeah, there's so many that come to mind. Um, every piece that you write, no matter how terrible you think it is, you learn something from it. It's a piece that exists as opposed to it not existing.
Mhm.
So, you know, don't be afraid. Like, just the way to get better is to get out there and do it. It's something I still wrestle with to this day. But yeah, you learn something, and everyone has their own story and their own voice. And when you write a piece that's your voice speaking, that's something that you say, then no one else could say it, but you. So
That is such a good point. And how you were just kind of talking just for a moment about, Beethoven did this, you don't have to do everything he did, but that's a good thing. And also that, you know, if you do not write a piece, it does not get written. And I think sometimes, I know as a singer that we deal with the intimidation factor so many times, oh, it's not going to be as good as so and so. So, I shouldn't even try. And I could certainly see that translating for a composer saying, oh, well, I'm never going to, I'm not Beethoven. So, why should I write this? And to me, the answer would be, well, no, you're not Beethoven. And thank goodness, because we've had Beethoven's voice. We needed his voice, and we're so lucky to have had his voice. It still informs us today culturally, but we need your voice too. We need other voices too. And to take that one fearful step and to put your voice out there is only going to add more to our world. And so I just think that that is excellent advice that you're giving, and such a wonderful perspective. It's a completely different um, angle to see this from, and I'm hoping that for the young people listening, or maybe for the not so young people listening too, that's a very important thing to remember, is that all of our voices need a place to be heard, and that they're special. So thank you for that, Jessica. I just feel that you've shared so much with us today, not only your personal journey, which is so beautiful, but also such wonderful advice for others. And I just really can't thank you enough for coming on today and being so gracious with your time and your talents. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Audrey.
My absolute pleasure.